All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy. We got Sir Mix-a-Lot, who is back after his absence. Bobble Juan, the GOAT, who is playing very soon in a Legends game, Matthew.
CFC
Matthew,
Classic.
how are we feeling today as we are together again for the hallowed and wonderful and also terrible tradition of getting excited about who is sticking around for a season and also sad about who's leaving?
Yeah. This is the part of the season that sucks in some ways for like culture more than wins and losses.
Yes.
This is the time of year where you say goodbye to players, to friends, to like valued members of the community,
To coaches.
Yeah, we've had, yeah,
That one came early, but
right,
coaches.
yeah. And so like it's always a little bit sad, but it's also a little bit exciting because, you know, this is the first step in. If you take the head coaching thing aside, which was, you know, happened last week,
2 weeks ago.
naming
3 weeks
Chris,
ago. Oh, that part, yeah.
naming Chris the permanent head coach. This is the true beginning of the offseason, making decisions on players. And so like I'm also now excited. What we're gonna do is like talk about some of the players that are out of contract. I guess we'll talk about all the players that are out of contract, and we'll send everybody off. Even though I will note that negotiations. This is a quote. Negotiations are ongoing with some players who are out of contract.
Like, what do you make of the release? It's a very simple release.
I'll just read it, to be honest. We'll just read it and start out.
Because I think there's a little bit of reading between the lines that you and I choose to do in this release.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially that final.
So we'll just start with this. Chattanooga Football Club today, this is October 21st, today announced end of season roster decisions ahead of the 2025 season. The following 6 players have had their contract options for 2025 exercised: Logan Brown, Milo Garvanyan, Jalen James, Farid Zarzar, Robert Screen, Callum Watson.
Welcome back, boys.
6 players. The following 5 players are under contract for 2025: Jude Arthur, Michael Beretta, Alex McGrath, Mehdi Womri, and Jesse Williams.
Welcome back, boys.
And we'll dissect all of this in a second. The following players are currently out of contract: Jean-Antoine, Jonathan Burke, Luis Garcia Sosa, Taylor Gray, Jesus Ibarra, Andres Jimenez Aranzazu, Ethan Corin, Minjae Kwok, Marcus Nagelstad, Joseph Perez, Anatoly Prepelitsa, Damian Rodriguez, and Duvan Villafara.
I don't know whether to hit the sad trombone or the applause button or the crickets button. I don't know what to hit with them. I'm going to hit the applause for thank you for your service. If it isn't indeed your, because there's a line after this that makes me think it might not be for some of these guys.
100% thank you for your service. And then it says, like I mentioned, negotiations are ongoing with some players who are out of contract. Chattanooga Football Club will play its 2nd season in MLS Next Pro in 2025.
So let's dissect the first paragraph here, which they've chosen, or the first paragraph that we care about, which is the following players have had their contract options for 2025.
Let's do under contract for 2025 already. No. It's a simpler category first.
Sure, I want to break them down. You can do whatever order you want, but I want to break them down paragraph by paragraph.
Correct. Yes, we will. But I want to do these 2 categories first, and then we'll go into the other things. So,
because I think there's a reason they separated these 2.
We can talk about that. The following 5 players are under contract for 2025, existing contracts. So, if y'all remember,
if you remember,
And by remember, I mean you'd have to have an absolute a worldie of a brain,
or you could just write it down.
Write it down. So
we are big old nerds.
So this podcast has a shared note.
And by this podcast, you mean you and I, because the other two podcasts, or three podcast hosts, depending, aren't as dumb as us.
Yeah.
Aren't as sick as us.
So you and I have a note that we share that we both have access to, an update that is like essentially called like the roster build note. We build this thing about this time of year. And truthfully, 2025 was already built.
With any bit of conjecture we could possibly find.
We build it early, and throughout an off season, we have like updated contract situations for every single player, because like the club does a really good job of publicizing of the contracts.
What do you mean by publicizing the contracts?
So in the signing announcements, there are such and such player was signed to a 1-year deal with a 1-year club option. Well, that goes down as a 1-year contract.
With a 1-year option.
And then we denote there's an option attached to this contract. Financial terms are never disclosed.
Occasionally they do say like a transfer fee was paid, which that was a first time thing this year.
They didn't actually ever specify a fee. Like, because they don't disclose the terms of the transaction. Like, clubs are always weird about that.
I'm not saying they told us how much it was. I'm saying they said that there was money exchanged.
Club record signing is how they would have referred to it. Yes.
Well, all right. That's even I've got it wrong because they've obfuscated. They've made it weird.
This is what they do. So, like, was it real American dollars? Was it Monopoly dollars? I don't know. What's the value
it's not
of
nice to refer to Canadian dollars as Monopoly dollars, Matthew.
What's the value of a Monopoly dollar?
If they come from Canada, 0.
Well, just 80%.
Fuck you, Canada.
80% of one of ours. So, okay. I note that because we know that Jude Arthurs, Michael Beretta's, Alex McGrath's, and Jesse Williams all had 2-year contracts. I'd have to get a little bit more into the weeds. I think Jude and Michael Beretta's were both 2-year contracts with a 1-year option attached, if memory serves. And I'll note that that Mehdi is under this list, although when he was originally signed, it was a 1-year deal and a 1-year option.
What is that? What do you think that means?
Well, I would say that like that's not the club exercising an option on a player like with this group of 6. I know it to believe that his option was automatically exercised.
You know it to believe?
I know it to believe.
It's a weird turn of phrase.
I know that his option was automatically exercised based on results on the field or on things on the field, which moves him into this like kind of under contract phase.
Okay.
Right? Okay. We also know. So then we go to the players who have had their contract options exercised. Logan, Milo, Jalen, Fareed, Robert, Callum. And then you go to the players that are out of contract. And this out of contract list makes no distinction between whether you had an option and it was declined or you were just out of contract. You didn't have an option, or your option, this was your option year, or whatever it is. Makes no distinction. But based on like previous announcements, we know that Duvan had his contract option declined. We know that Damien had his option declined.
We know based on this because, according to the previous announcements, he had an option. Therefore,
yes. Because
you just said
that's
based
the basis
on.
of.
Yeah, keep going.
We know that Minjay had his option declined, and we know that Marcus had his option declined. And then out of contract, just straight up out of contract. Jean, Antoine, John Burt, Anatoly Prepolita, Jesus, Andres, Joseph, Perez, Ethan Corin, Lucho, and Taylor Gray.
LGS is Lucho and Lucho is LGS for anyone wondering.
Oh yeah. So Luis Garcia Sosa. So that's the out of contract group. And then split out. We've got it split out for for the options. And what I'll note is
negotiations are ongoing with some players who are out of contract.
Yeah, number one, like negotiations are ongoing. They didn't tell us who those are. That can be a player who is just straight up out of contract. For example, Andres Jimenez Aranzazu was on a 1-year deal with no option. Just that's his contract.
He was our minutes leader for this year, and games leader for this year. Who knows? But it is reasonable to think we might be currently negotiating with him for a return.
Yeah. If you look at the first 4 names that I mentioned there, like Jean was on a 2-year deal from the Nice times. Jonathan Burke was on a 2-year deal. Anatoly was on a 2-year deal. Jesus was on like an 18-month deal, year and a half, when he joined midway through the Nice season last year. It's like all those guys are just out of contract. JP, I think JP was on his option year. I think Lucho was on his option year. I think Taylor was on just a 1 year straight up.
I don't know. I don't remember.
And I think Ethan the same way. So
Ethan was the final signing for this year, so it's not surprising that he might be on just a 1-year deal.
So basically, if you're asking, hey, like what's going to happen to those guys out of contract? The answer is, I don't know. So
also what we didn't mention is guys who they declined their option, they still may be very much negotiating with them, because let's say their option was for, a big pay increase, like a giant pay increase, more than the club thinks that they're worth based on how many minutes or what role they perceive or whatever else. It doesn't mean they can't still both sides, the club and the player agree to potentially essentially a restructured contract, which is a new. We didn't take your option at $5 million. I'm making up big numbers for fun. At $5 million, we're going to give you one for $1 million. Like in pro sports, can happen.
This is a pretty. This is the normal course of events.
And I think they left this vague very much on purpose. They gave us, they made sure to break it out into the 2-year contract part, which you and I agree with your assessment of that. They also showed like options that we chose to pick up, and they broke those out together very like purposefully when I read this. And then everybody else being listed together definitely makes things a little more confusing, but I think they did that on purpose. And then they don't tell us anything, because I think that they don't want anything announced or figured out or thought of until it's done.
There are,
and that is the most fair thing to everybody, to the club and to the players,
and reasonably, when like are all, what is this, 13? I think it's 13 players that are listed that are out of contract right now. Not all of those 13 players are coming back, right? Like that's just, we know that. So when, I'm sure like when those players, that are actually leaving, when they go somewhere else, I'm sure they'll get a little, thank you, because there were no like thank yous attached with these this time around, because I think they're obfuscating a little bit of who's going in what direction. And I'll note that like Marcus was on the thank you list last year.
Also, we don't, and then we re-signed him eventually. Also, we don't have a sporting director right now. How many of these decisions are we leaving up to Chris? How many of these decisions are we leaving up to the sporting director? I don't know. It may be that Chris has the power, and the current, people that are running things on the sporting side currently have all the power to re-sign whoever they want. But also, maybe, you never know what framework they're operating under. They may choose to sign some guys as time goes on. They also may just continue negotiating with some guys, because there may be some guys that go, hey, I want to go
test the waters. I want to see what's out there in the championship or whatever.
We may have offers on the table, and you just never know how they're operating, but we may have offers on the table that expire at a certain point. We may have offers that say like, hey, we want you to come to camp and compete for a spot. And some guys may be like, cool, I'm not doing that unless I don't have a contract. You just never know. That's kind of how this business works, where a lot of guys go into the offseason hoping to land somewhere for big money, and then they find out that they can be who you can afford to be, as they say. And, it'll be interesting to see kind of where some of these guys land, because very clearly in my mind, I mean, you have the goal of the year winner in Ibarra, and a guy who, like, we just did the math the other day, how really, really good we were with him and really, really bad we were without him. Like, I don't know, but I can't imagine that he's...
We had a comment that we didn't actually share the math on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, we didn't share the math, did we? Matthew, why don't you ruin my day, please?
So Jesus was available for or maybe
Played in
is the actual,
because he had one game he was available and he wasn't around the very first game.
Available. Was not available at all. So he played in 18 matches in the league. We won 8 games. We drew 8 times, and we lost 2 games with Jesus on the field, whether as a sub or a starter. Which means for the 10 games in the league that he was not available for, we won once, we drew twice, and we lost 7 times.
Oof.
The summer of discontent, I think, is a way to put that one. So yeah, that's where that is. In case you're just curious and want to be a little nerdy, the out of contract appearances total for CFC for that entire group comes out to 568. And the under contract appearances total comes out to 270.
Ooh. That does not feel good, Matthew.
Now, let's throw a different spin on it. Let's just say, like last year, when we said goodbye to Marcus, Marcus returned this year, and let's just say it appears that his option has been declined. If they enter in negotiations and Marcus comes back, as an example, you can move 93 appearances, which is a fuckload. You can move 93 appearances over into the other column, which all of a sudden changes the numbers to be 475 leaving and 363 returning. So
a little less crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of appearances in one day.
But let's not kid ourselves. This is the out of contract list is significant, and we're gonna go through some of these players. But it's not for nothing on the list there, right? So let's go over the 2025 roster as it stands today, and then we're gonna come back and talk about individual players, because we're going to treat on this podcast today, we're going to treat the out of contract players like they're all departing forever. We hope that's not the case. We hope to get some of these guys back,
yeah, but we're doing the goodbyes now, and if they come back, we'll be excited they're back.
Correct. So let's do the roster as it stands today. Goalkeepers. It's just one. It's just Mike Beretta. He was our number 3 this year.
Didn't see a minute on the field. Except preseason.
Yeah, except in preseason. Correct. Okay. Defenders. Right back, Robert Screen. Right back, Jesse Williams.
Are you sure Robert Screen's a right back?
I know he played in midfield and 2 sub appearances at the end of the season.
He might have more minutes at right back or in the midfield than he did at right back all season.
That's technically true in the league, but it's not true if you include the Open Cup.
I don't think we were in the Open Cup last year.
I don't remember it. So, yeah, I'm counting them both as right backs. Center back, Farid Sarzar. Center back, Logan Brown.
I thought you were going to skip Logan. I was how dare you.
Left back, Milo Garvanyan. Center midfielder, Alex McGrath. Center midfielder, Callum Watson. Defensive midfielder, Jude Arthur. And then at the forwards, you've got Jalen James, who we're just writing down as a right winger. And striker, Mehdi Wamri, who, by the way, MLS Next Pro Best 11. Mehdi Wamri. Congratulations to him.
Letting that one go all the way through to the end. That was a good one.
That's a great honor. So,
and well-deserved. 15 goal contributions rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the primary stuff. He also earned a penalty that was put away by Alex McGrath in the opening game. That does not get him a goal contribution, even though it should. So I want to go, Breezy, real quick with the current positions of need. Just so, folks, based on the roster we have right now, positions that we can expect to see signings from, or for, I guess, throughout this offseason. So we've got 2 goalkeepers, on this list: 2 center backs, a left back, defensive midfielder, 2 in central or attacking midfield position, 3 wingers, and 2 strikers. And if you're wondering about the math and why certain positions are getting classified in certain numbers, we're assuming 3 goalkeepers. We're assuming 3 number 9s, 3 strikers. 2 at left wing, 2 at right wing, 4 in that kind of central attacking midfielder, because we're assuming a 4-3-3 where we play with 2 guys ahead of a number 6, a defensive midfielder, and then 4 at the back, standard left back, right back, and a couple center backs. So that's what we can kind of expect, at least at this stage, to look for when it comes to the roster build. And obviously in the future, maybe we see something this year, maybe we don't. Like, you just never really know. But like CFC in the 3rd division, at least for now, we're not the top of the pecking order in U.S. soccer, and we're certainly not the top of the pecking order in global soccer. So
should be.
We want to be a club where players can come here, and I've said this 1,000 times in this podcast before. We want to be a club where players can come here, perform well, and move up the food chain, right? And whether that's in USL Championship, or MLS, or overseas, or wherever it is, we want players to come here and move on. And in future times, in future years, we want like players that are under contract with us, like, may leave and go, get signed by somebody else. Maybe there's a transfer fee. Maybe there's whatever. Like, we want those things.
There better be a transfer fee.
That will be a sign of progress. That will be a sign of growth for this club. And we haven't talked about it as much, I think, lately, mostly because we've been doing a lot more like match centered podcasts. But like, as far as like improving the financial sustainability of this club, for clubs around the world, like, player sales are a massive component to helping clubs close the gap on the off the field side financially.
Is this because you listened to that podcast that you sent me?
Partially, but also it was in the can, ready to go anyway.
If you guys could have heard Matthew's podcast he sent me, it was good. It was good.
So anyway, that's the breakdown of what we can expect to see, at least at this point in time. You ready to?
I am.
Where do you want me to start?
I would like to start I would like to go in order that they went. So I think they listed Jean first, or Jean-Antoine. So I'd like to start with him because that's how I listed my notes. Okay. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
So I will do the kind of statty stuff, and I'll let you start after that.
Deal.
The memory stuff.
And then you can throw in some memory stuff too.
Yeah. So Jean-Antoine, 2 seasons, joined in January of 2023. 48 appearances for CFC. He kept 18 clean sheets. Most of those were in Nisa, obviously. But yeah, I'll let you go from here.
He also won 6 shootouts in MLS Next Pro. You son of a bitch.
Nisa best 11 in 2023.
Mm-hmm. Well deserved. Man, so after every game, he was always there to take ownership of a loss or give credit to others for a win. If he came up big, he was always like really like just let it. Oh no, like the guys did this, the guys did that. And if there was anything that happened that was within our control or without, like if you complained to him about how bad the referee was, he wouldn't listen to that for a second. He'd be like, "But we should have done this or we should have done that." He was Mr. Extreme Ownership, and it was beautiful. The double penalty save in Tuscaloosa will be forever etched in my memory.
Oh yeah,
of Jean-Antoine. I mean, just what a man. And from this season in particular, obviously I mentioned a second ago, we won 6 penalty shootouts, so 6 extra points with him in goal during penalty shootouts, in which he had saves in every single one. But the thing that I'll remember, the one of those that I'll remember most, was New England away,
Oh my gosh.
where I lost several years of life off of my life.
On the brink of
Extinction.
on the brink of elimination, like seriously.
Extinction. And he did the thing. He saved 3 in that.
Like basically one-on-ones.
And yeah, he had the huge saves in the game. He had the huge saves in the penalty shootout. It was just awesome. You have any other special moments that you want to mention?
I think about like just his absolute like steadiness. Coming off of 2022, our goalkeepers in KG and Alec were not like the biggest, most imposing physical guys.
That's putting it very nicely.
And like that was an obvious like point of emphasis to get a different goalkeeper profile in the offseason.
And boy, did we. Physical profile.
And not only did they go out and get a physical profile that was completely different, but like they also just went out and got the best keeper in the league from the year before. And
they got a leader, somebody who this year was the oldest player on the roster until Marcus resigned.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that leadership, that experience, that just like steadiness. I mean, he was an absolute force back there. And that's I remember I remember he was in the line after the Red Bulls game, and he was walking down, shaking hands with everybody, all those kids or whatever out there signing autographs through the supporters section. And I remember we locked eyes, and as he was coming through, and he was like, I didn't want to go out like that. Mm. And I don't know if he was referring to like potentially retiring. I don't know if he was referring to like just like the season ending like that. Because you got to remember, we were on a great run at the end. I mean, it ended up being 2 wins, 2 draws with penalty shootout wins. But
10 of the last 12 points.
Like we almost pulled that thing off. And his, you could just tell. You can just tell how much it meant and how much you wish that like that one more point we could have delivered. And I don't remember if I told the story or not about after the New England game. Maybe I did. That my my cousin's son was in New England, and he grabbed Joaquim's phone, took a selfie with everybody. You're in that picture. Mm-hmm.
I remember that part.
Just legendary. And
assuming he does not come back, he will be greatly, greatly missed.
Yeah.
And we're assuming that with all these players, we're acting as if they're leaving. And, I don't think Matthew or I would be super surprised if either Burke or John Antoine came back. But, since neither one has clearly been re-signed yet, we're just assuming that they won't be back.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew, let's move on to John Burke. Jonathan Burke, the night train himself.
Night train indeed. What a guy.
He spent basically the entire season last season backing Jean Antoine up. He really didn't play hardly at all. And then this season, it wasn't quite split. It was like 2/3 and a third, but like he played quite a bit and won us quite a bit of points, Matthew, during games and also in penalty shootouts.
Yeah, 2 seasons total, 22 appearances. He kept 1 clean sheet, and that was the Cincinnati game. This year. Yeah, the 3-0 win against the team that ended up being the Eastern Conference regular season champion.
They lost last night.
Yeah, I did see that. I did watch that.
I only know that because you texted to update me. As far as I know, playoffs are done.
I was curious. I was a little curious, so I wanted to.
Let's be really honest. You were doing scouting.
Yeah.
You were trying to figure out who you like, so that in some of these off-season pods, we can talk about who you want. This is not a joke. Who you want on our teams.
Buddy, that's going to be a fun podcast.
I know. We're going to have a great time.
And I'm going to be prepared.
I might be. It'd be more fun if I'm less prepared. So every game, post game, the vibes were immaculate when it came to Senor Burke. He just always had a big smile on his face. He managed to, like, I think your backup goalkeeper is supposed to be the vibes guy, genuinely. I think they're supposed to keep spirits up when things are not going well, and he did that both times. He always had a big smile on his face. He was always positive. He was always, like, just the man. So good. Crown Legacy away will be the moment that kind of is indelible to me. I'll never forget that. The incredible saves during the game that he had no business making, and then the penalty shootout win that he gave us. Plus, the other thing is he introduced us to playoff. I keep saying playoff penalty shootout wins this season as he was the starting goalkeeper versus Huntsville.
Yeah.
He was also my goalkeeper coach for, I think I've mentioned on this podcast before, but I had him for some private lessons, and all those times really special to me, man. He's a really good player, a really good coach, and a really good dude. And, wherever he goes, I'll be rooting for him. And I will also really miss his family, who were, it's as if they lived in Chattanooga, even though they live in Chicago. They were here every game that he played and almost every game when he didn't. And then they were on the road for sure if he played. And then most of the time, even if he didn't play. Yeah. I think the only people to attend more games than us this season is definitely them.
Yeah. And it was definitely them. By like several.
and look, Justin Fizzaro's in that group. Like, he attended almost as many as we did, or because he attended a couple that we didn't. So he might have even attended the same amount we did. But holy moly, man. Yeah. Like, his parents were at everything, and like they rule. Yeah. And I'm going to miss the whole Burke family.
I've really enjoyed
the parents, like everybody.
Remember
on and off the field.
Remember when Tate left and went to Lexington? Like, we had seen Tate's dad.
Yes, at everything. At everything. Well, and that was a little bit of the same, I
just love...
Were you thinking Greg Stratton's dad?
No, well, Greg Stratton's dad also, but like Tate's dad was also at like everything. And I really enjoy getting to meet players' families and welcoming them into...
I mean, we had John Burke, John Burke's family, the very first preseason game, like last year or whatever, I think in Nisa. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I want to share something about John Burke on the field.
Do it.
That I think is really interesting. Of goalkeepers that have 700 minutes in MLS Next Pro this year. And this is based on American Soccer Analysis's goals added for goalkeepers per match, per 96 minutes. He's at 0.45, which is the biggest number among goalkeepers in MLS Next Pro.
Put that in plain English for me.
The underlying numbers, goalkeeper numbers, are
notoriously hard to pin down.
Right. Smart people that I trust in American soccer nerdery stats world seem to like what these guys are doing. It gets referenced on big MLS podcasts. But like his shot stopping numbers, I'm gonna pull before I say this out loud. His shot stopping numbers are twice. This is for like the category shot stopping, twice as good as anybody else in the league. Twice as good.
Love that.
So the next best goalkeeper for this category, Stanislav Lapkis from Columbus, at 0.24. So a quarter goals per game, basically, added through like shot stopping.
And he's at 0.42.
No, he's at 0.48. It is double. It is half a goal a game. And like, if you go through the course of the season and you watch and remember the games that he played in, that checks out, actually. That totally checks out. Like, think about the saves he had against Huntsville. Think about the saves he had against Toronto. The Charlotte game, the Crown Legacy game in August, he had a couple of unbelievable saves. I would, and I just saw, before we started recording, I just saw that he put out his highlight video on YouTube. And I would take that highlight video and I would circle this whole little page right here, and I would send that to every single club in North America if I were him. Because that's just a ridiculous number.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a player.
Matthew, take me to Lucho, to Luis, to LGS.
Lucho. Let me scroll down and find him here. Luis Garcia Sosa, 2 seasons, 49 appearances. He had 4 goals and 7 assists in his time with CFC.
So, Luis, if I could talk to you directly, when you were at Stumptown, I always wanted you to be a Blue. And yeah, we finally got it. It took a little too long, but we got there. The way I'll always remember the way the ball stuck to his foot. He's not dead. I know I'm eulogizing like he's dead. He's not dead. He's going to go play somewhere else. But the way the ball always stuck to his left foot and it was glued when he just like just the way he would like wiggle around and like turn to the left, turn to the right, and pivot. He's also the first guy to wear the number 10 post Juan Hernandez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll miss him. And what game was it this year that he was completely unplayable?
Oh, it was like freaking FC Cincinnati, or it was one of the first couple games.
No, there was he was really good in the first 6, but like there was a game late this season where he was just completely unplayable.
Oh, you know what?
Because I was gonna put it in my notes and then I couldn't remember which one it was.
I gotta pull up my game.
Was it Columbus?
Columbus. He did not play.
Couldn't have been Columbus. Orlando. Was it Orlando?
Was it the Orlando game that we won?
That we gutted our way through?
Yeah, he had a 73-minute cameo in that game. You know what game it might have been legitimately? It might have been... No, it wasn't that game. It might have been Orlando.
I think it was Orlando. So basically, late on this season, this is the game that sticks out. I just can't remember which one it was. It must have been Orlando, where he played the game of his life. He was like a one-man possession machine. And he was just like, apologies. He was absolutely electric in his ability to keep the ball and run away from everybody else and just pivot and turn and keep the ball going. And it was just like he was on a whole different plane from everybody else on either team that whole game. And yeah, that's kind of one of the moments from this season that stuck out. Matthew, what moments stuck out for you?
I right this second remember the curling banger in the Independent Cup last year.
I almost did that one.
Just because it was pure filth. Yeah. He also, I believe, I want to get this one right, so we're going to find out if I'm right or not. He had the assist for the MLS Next Pro goal of the season scored by Jesus Ibarra, which that announcement was just made over the weekend.
There is a mosquito buzzing around and I want to kill it, but I haven't been able to. It's because I left the back door open because it's beautiful outside right now. Taylor Gray, Matthew.
Taylor is one of the few players, maybe the only player. I don't know. One of the players that had 3 seasons with CFC. He joined when Rod came in 2022 from Maryland Bobcats. 67 appearances, 13 goals, and 14 assists. Taylor's a guy I'm going to remember for his growth on the field. So when Taylor arrived, he ended up with 8 goals and 2 assists in that first year. And really good start for a guy that had 1 pro goal before coming to CFC. Really came into his own on the scoring side. And I had kind of given like a little podcast challenge of like, I want to see Taylor take the next step in 2023 in terms of his creation, his providing for others. Because I thought if you put those things together, you'd be a real special player. And we saw him come out in 2023 at like a nuclear level game raise. He was unplayable. And then he got hurt against Birmingham, and we didn't see him again until the very, very end of the season, when he had a quick cameo sub, and then you did not get it.
I did. I got one of them. Another one was around.
A quick cameo sub, and then he subbed on at halftime in the Flower City game in the playoffs, and so when he came back for 2024, it was like, can he go back to that level? And he ends the year with 4 goals and 8 assists. And I think really did show, like, yes, like he ended up like kind of almost reinventing himself a little bit from like kind of mainly a finisher to mainly a provider. And he led the team in assists this year. He, I think, was second in key passes. And just a real productive player for us on the wing. And then at times up top in that little, 2-man combination with Medi.
Matthew, he was 5th overall in MLS Next Pro in assists.
Very cool. What was the big number? The leader.
10, 2 more than him.
Yeah. Okay.
Aaron John and D. Gonzalez. I don't know his first name. It could be Diego, but I'm not
It is
sure.
Diego Gonzalez from Houston.
That's what I thought. Yeah, those are the two.
Yeah, that's great company.
10.
That's great company.
Oh, I almost broke my computer. Okay, Taylor, man. Taylor was somebody who I thought was going to be a striker when we signed him. He was not. I had no memories of him except for the one time one little highlight reel of him like dribbling down the one side. I didn't remember him before he came to CFC. And Rod was right. Rod signed him because he saw the potential there. Here's one of my memories. Taylor is arguably the most recognizable player by the general fan base since Juan Hernandez.
It's the hair.
It is the hair. But like he's the guy. So if you remember how electric the stadium was when he subbed in that final regular season game towards the end, like the entire stadium was on its feet, and it was like the prodigal son had returned, or the long lost star had returned, or whatever. Like it was just like, it's a different feeling than anybody else. And while like other players have had a bigger impact on the field, Marcus as an example, over that same period of time, no one's more recognizable. Yes, a lot of it's the hair, but also it's the dribbling play style.
It's just the dribbles.
It's the vibe on the field. And people recognized Juan, and don't forget, Juan's hair wasn't that long. Yes, it was long, but like people recognized him for the vibe, and the hair helped. But Taylor's the first guy since then to have that thing too. And Luis could have had it if he hadn't cut his hair.
That's factual.
But
and let this be put this into the universe in terms of the sporting department. Like,
be cool like JP and have good hair.
Hair matters a lot. Hair brings the vibes. Sign players with good hair. That's all.
Yeah, I'll kind of leave it. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of really good moments, including him trying to.
Remember the rainbow that he played against Maryland, against forward team in his first game with CFC?
Yeah, it's unreal, man. The swag. Jesus Ibarra.
Jesus joins in the summer of 2023 as in large part like as kind of the Taylor Gray replacement during that injury recovery for Taylor. So
I'm gonna go close the back door. Keep going.
2 seasons with CFC, 33 appearances, 10 goals, and 6 assists. He had 3 and 3 in 2023 in 13 games or whatever. And then 7 goals and 3 assists this season. Just a phenomenal season. We talked about Jesus's record when he played in games this season versus when he did not play, when he was out with injury in the middle summer part of the season, and how drastically his absence was felt by the team. I will remember Jesus. I'll remember Jesus for a couple reasons. The Trivela that he scored, which won MLS Next Pro Goal of the Year, rightly so. The Trivela he scores against Cincinnati was iconic, and just like an unbelievable moment. And then following it up, this is a guy who scored. Excuse me, this is a guy who scored 3 goals in 2023. In the back part of that season, and I think you and I were hoping that there would have been a little bit more production, because remember, our offense had really kind of slowed down. Games were kind of grindy in that part of the season once Taylor got hurt and in 2023, and like we were really hoping that like Jesus' inclusion was going to really pick it up, and it did for a couple games, and then we went really into that grind, and he popped out on an absolute friggin' mission this year. Scored 2 goals in his first sub appearance against Cincinnati, and was just like basically unplayable for the first half of the year. Like capping that first half of the year all off with like a great ball. Number one, a free kick that hit the bar, and an unbelievable ball back post, which was headed back to Duvan to score the equalizer at Orlando. And I think was the high, and then we go on to win the shootout. I think that was the high water mark of our season, was ending the first half in second place. Yeah. And you could tell, coming back his first game, starting straight away, scoring straight away. Just a really good player. And, yeah.
So it's only been 1.5 seasons, but it feels like 3. It just feels like he's been here the whole time. The way he absolutely roasted dudes with just his hips.
Yeah. I mean, like, Jesus is not the fastest guy in the world.
Buddy. Jesus is not fast. There's no need to add the world. He is tricky and unbelievably talented, and he does things to dudes he should never be able to. No diddy. And he does all the right things.
I just noticed what you did there.
With his hips. Like, it's just send dudes the wrong way, like go past them, fake, cut, drive, pass, shoot. He is so tricky and so wonderful, and he was so good this year. I mean, you already talked about the record, but like that should be enough for us all to remember, like, when Jesus gave us wins and when Jesus wasn't there and we couldn't win.
His ability to hold the ball up on the sideline, to bring the rest of the team into the game,
and to make the right decision pretty much every single time,
and then when to cut inside with the ball and like get the ball out and switch the field a little bit to get us out of our defensive shell and off to the races. Just, yeah, I'll miss him.
He's a bad dude, man. I'll miss him too. Andres Jimenez Aranzazu.
1 season.
It took a whole season, but we finally got the asshole of that did all of our games from MLS Next Pro to stop calling him Aranzaza, and now he's gone.
31 appearances, which was
definition of a glue guy.
All of them.
Definition of a glue guy, meaning if he wasn't playing, we weren't playing.
And by the way, just in case you're curious, because this might be the first time you would have noticed it, if you're paying attention,
he cut his own hair.
No, 28 games in MLS Next Pro in the league, 1 game in the Open Cup. How are we getting to 31? We included Birmingham because it was included in your season ticket package. And we also included the South Georgia Tormenta game at the Blastoff Battle in Huntsville, because that was a ticketed event with pro players, pro rules, etc.
Our rules, because we always were an amateur team and we didn't have that many games, are the game has to be, you can't have in and out subs. You can have as many subs as you want, but not in and out subs. It has to be against a team that you could play. So college teams don't count. A team that you could play in some competition somewhere. Friendlies do count, though. It can be preseason or regular season, and the fans have to be allowed at the game. So no closed doors games.
Yeah.
And that's how we've always done it, and that's now how we've continued to do it. Now, the one thing we are doing, I think now, is we are counting, and now it's not going to matter, but MLS Next Pro had the added assists there for half a season, the MLS assists.
Yeah.
And we were just going to let whatever they count as assists go as the official record. But now that they've gone back to regular assists, we don't have to.
Yeah, it works out.
We're just going to easily be able to not have to make that weird distinction. But man, what definition of a glue guy? His ability to go studs up, slide tackle a guy with both studs up. 5 minutes into a game and never even get a yellow card
Here's
was
the thing that I
untouchable.
just thought of right now. At the beginning of the season, like preseason, whatever, based off his highlight tape when we signed him, if you had told me that he would have played in every single match, preseason, Open Cup, the league, everything,
And have been our minutes leader.
not even that he would have been our minutes leader, but that he would have played in every single match, because you know what that means?
He didn't get a single red card.
He didn't get a single red card, and maybe
Not
more,
even yellow card accumulation.
and maybe more shocking, no yellow card accumulation. This guy is Colombian,
Really Colombian.
and like he tackled like it sometimes, which I think just goes to show the remarkable restraint and discipline from Andres this season. And I think that's incredible.
I'll also remember in particular the way he won the Columbus game essentially by himself.
Oh my gosh. Right place, right time, stepping, immediately releasing, like recognizing the space in behind, like just so good.
The undying work ethic at all times. Very JP-esque, who we'll get to in a little bit, but they have a very similar thing where there's always running. And he sat the club record signing on the bench
Yeah.
for a large portion of the season.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm sad about, besides him leaving, is that I never got to see him take a penalty, because it is my belief he would have done something absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, truly heinous, potentially.
I was going to say heinous, and then I changed my mind.
Andres was one
it
of
would
those
have been
players
legendary.
we mentioned that was on a 1-year deal, no option.
So yeah, we might. You never know. We might see him back. I wouldn't be shocked to see him back.
I will note 1 assist primary, but if you want to go a little deeper, he also had 6 hockey assists. What are you doing there, buddy? Oh, getting water. Yeah, 6 hockey assists, which I think just goes to show like his ability to play. Obviously, the ball before the final ball was instrumental for this group.
I mean, his ability to play with the ball is what allowed us to do a lot of what we needed to do in midfield, and I think the reason most of the time the reason he started.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. What's next?
Ethan Corin.
Ethan, 3 seasons, 17 appearances, 1 goal. What a hell of a goal it was, too.
Also, 17 appearances, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, feels like more. Feels like a lot. But and a lot of those were this season.
Ethan played more games this season than he did in the 2 seasons in Nisa combined.
Yeah, it's good. It's a compliment. It's really good.
Yeah, it's when we signed Ethan in 2022, he was just kind of a young
Center back.
depth piece
And then we realized his true calling
as a striker. Yeah, I he was a young guy. He was out of I think he had trained with Richmond for a little bit.
So he'd been with Richmond for a season, and he'd been in Orlando's academy.
Yeah, and just turned pro early and like worked really hard, and saw some friendly appearances in 2022. He saw some league appearances in 2023.
But he also got injured and spent a lot of time being injured.
Yes, yeah, I forgot about that. And then this year, when Medi was still acclimating and under minutes restrictions at the very beginning part of the season.
Yeah, it wasn't just acclimating; it was getting
Ethan
fit.
Ethan started both the Huntsville and the Miami United games at striker
And then he came in off the bench and scored.
against Miami. Yeah.
Which, by the way, here's one thing I'll always remember. That's the hardest the team together have celebrated.
Oh my God, yeah. And remember, like, he should have scored 6 minutes in the Huntsville game, in the home game that he started, where they had ruled the ball had just gone out of bounds on the end line when JP cut it across.
That's right.
And he headed it just like squeaked through the corner.
forgot about that.
And scored, which would have been an unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable moment. So I'm really happy he got his goal earlier in the season. He worked really hard. He was a regular, he subbed in occasionally as well, whether in midfield or even up top a couple of times.
He was on basically every trip because he can play 9 different positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if this is the end, like,
Go get some playing time, my dude.
go get some playing time.
You deserve it.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel very similarly about him and John Burke. meaning like it's time for both those dudes to go play. Whether if it's not here, then go play somewhere else and go actually play. I mean, you deserve to start. Min-jae
Kwok, 1 season, 15 appearances, 1 goal, and what a hell of a banger it was.
I was gonna say I have basically one big moment because unfortunately most of his season was ruined by injury.
Yeah.
But boy, what a moment it was at New England.
Yeah. I mean, just incredible. Just also, it's the first time we've ever scored when I yelled, "Go buy him, he sucks." And the best part is, you met the guy who went by later that night.
I did. Sweet kid.
I don't feel bad about it.
I don't either. So good, man. So good.
Yeah, I'll remember that goal specifically. Min-jae was pretty heavily involved in the attack in the Atlanta game where we scored 3 goals at home.
His first game at right wing back.
His first game, I think his first game for the club was the New England game off the bench, if memory serves, when he finally got healthy, and was a real live wire, subbing on and helping create some opportunities. And eventually we won the game on Medi's bicycle kick. He might have even drawn did he draw the second yellow card to get the red? I forget.
No, Medi did, I think.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know if that was his first. That him and Callum came in together, and absolutely. I think that was not his first game. I think that was his first game where it was like, oh shit, there it is.
That's possible, actually.
Because they subbed in together and absolutely tore it up. I remember. Yeah, happy trails, Min-jae. Well, I kind of think he's just going to go to League One and be a winger. Is what I think. Not that we've done that for any other player, but that's just kind of where I think
his first game. His first game was that sub appearance. And it was just him. Callum didn't sub in.
No, I'm thinking of a different game then.
Yeah. I have a feeling that's where he's going, and he'll in that league, like as direct as that league plays, he will wreck people.
Marcus,
man, how much time do we have?
I don't like saying bye to a player 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
Especially if he resigns. I hope he resigns.
I hope he resigns. But let's just go through it. 4 seasons, 93 appearances, which puts him tied for 3rd all time with Richard Dixon, behind Juan and Zeka. He's at 58 goals, which is 1st all time. And he's at 16 assists. Excuse me. Which puts him at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6th all time. 1st in goals, 6th in assists as a striker, and tied for 3rd in appearances.
Wow.
If for nothing else, I hope he resigns to get to the century mark.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, so I don't know what to say. I kind of tried to write a thing before this, but I don't know what to say that we already said last year. You're a club legend, Marcus, and the all-time leading goal scorer, and I really, 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 more than maybe anybody else in this league, or in this list, excuse me, hope this is not the last time we see him in blue.
Yeah, I think Marcus embodies that kind of like old school CFC foreigner, comes to Chattanooga.
Makes Chattanooga home. Changes the culture a little bit of the club because everybody's had their piece of the club that they've made like their own. So here's what I hope, man. And I know we're not really doing this for anybody else, but like I think we saw in this season something we learned is there's a place for a specialist. And I don't mean that he can't play other roles. I don't mean that he can't start. I don't mean that he can't play because we saw him play half the game at Toronto and get an assist and play really, really well. So like, I'm not trying to relegate him to only being a specialist, but few players can also occupy the specialist role the way Carlos Rivas did, which you can see how it should be, or you can see how Marcus did towards the end of the season, and having someone that can take penalties towards the end of game, someone that can sub in as an offensive player at the end of games, obviously can start and do other things too. But I think there's a place, even if he's not viewed as the starter, there's a place for a guy like Marcus, especially as an experienced player who understands the culture of Chattanooga on and off the field. And I just really, really hope that this season they make the decision to bring him back that they didn't make last season.
Yeah. And
there should be 3 strikers on the roster.
I did say that. That was kind of intentional.
And it's not just for Marcus. It could, in theory, it could be somebody else. But I think that they should. I think it was a mistake not to bring him back last season. I don't know all of what happened, but like I think it was a mistake overall. And I think He came back obviously eventually, and I think it would be a mistake to again not have him come back.
Yeah, but for the purposes of this,
I know that's not part of this thing, but
I'm
that's
gonna
my one little
I'm gonna
side note.
remember the assist and just the way generally he played in Toronto was
Oh
just
my God, yeah.
It was electric city. And I was really hoping there was going to be a goal
I know.
to cap it. But the assist was incredible. That he
And then
got,
Taylor hit that volley.
and then obviously like the 2 penalty kicks that he converted. What was it? Red
One
Bull?
on a Dunze and the one against Red Bulls.
Yeah, and like the one against on a Dunze in Charlotte was really special because it was that redemption from the PK shootout. Like that was his first like penalty kick
Since then.
opportunity since then.
Well, if you don't count the vaunted and wonderful 7v7 tournament that is the soccer tournament,
Yeah, he
Matthew,
absolutely roasted people in the TSC.
where he
It
also
was
took a penalty
awesome.
during that.
By the way, that's 2 years in a row.
A CFC player has been signed after the TS.
I think I mentioned that after we signed him again. But like, I just can't wait till we go scout the TST again.
I think we should try to have Marcus on in the offseason, regardless of what happens. Hopefully, it's right after he signs. Hopefully, he signs. But I think it'd be cool to have Marcus on again.
That'd be fun.
And if it is the last time, Marcus, you're a fucking legend. And I can't wait to see you in the Legends game next year. If you don't resign. But please, for the love of Bob, please resign. Okay, JP.
Oh man.
Now we're getting down to some hard ones.
JP, 2 seasons, 62 appearances. 48 of those were starts. He had 2 assists, nearly had a goal. In case you're curious, like,
Should have had a couple more assists.
yeah, like in case you're curious, like what 62, like what kind of number that is, and Taylor was up there at 67, so we can throw him in this category. That puts them alongside, like here are the players that have played between 60 and 70 appearances for CFC. So just so you get an idea, Taylor Gray's at 67, Felipe Oliveira, 63 appearances,
We'll see him in a couple weeks.
Jordan Dunstan, 62 appearances, Tate Robertson, 62 appearances, Luis Trude, 61 appearances.
Holy moly.
Like, yes, the club like went, long season professional and all that. So like these numbers are a little bit, it's a little bit apples to oranges. But like, think about
It's wild.
putting on the jersey 60 times. Like, that's rarefied air. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking just
And not one of those guys had blue hair for most of them.
correct. Like if you're looking just above that, like Nick Spielman had 74 appearances, right? John Carrier had 74 appearances. Soren Yahashchak had 76. Greg Hartley had 77. Like this is where you hit 60, like you start really entering some rarefied air.
Yeah.
Man, JP, what
What a guy.
some of the best like work rate I've ever seen. Like just like the engine, the motor. Like he's not the most athletic player. He's not the most technical player. But what he is an absolute gamer. And just through like effort and a willingness to do a job, whatever that job is, which at times was right back, at times it was right wing back.
At times it was left back. At times it was left wing back.
And at times it was like pinching into becoming an auxiliary defensive midfielder. Like he just did the job. He was the best left back in Nisa easily in 2023 for us. And he and Milo really, as a left back tandem, like really worked well. And oftentimes they were both on the team.
Our other right backs on the field.
Yeah.
On the bench, excuse me, rather.
And an absolute class guy, wonderful guy. And if this is the end for him, I saw that he picked up a new agent or picked up an agent. And, gonna speculate here for a second, but that sometimes means like you're moving on, like you're planning to move on. And, assuming that's the case, like best wishes, go crush it.
Man, that blue hair, the endless running, the post-game hugs. This one hurts a lot.
The absolute swag. That man was willing to put on a pair of nice shoes and pants and a fly-looking shirt.
After every game.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of memories on the field and moments on the field, but for whatever reason, his moments off the field for JP in particular that stick out. He always dressed so well, as you mentioned, especially post-game. He had blue hair from the beginning. Big hugs. I'll miss him on the field for sure, but I'll miss him even more off. Anatoly Prepelica.
Big Toley. 2 seasons, 54 appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists, and he was a part of 14 clean sheets.
What an unbelievable tone setter that guy was. Yeah. That guy is. I remember one of the moments that stands out, that I think stands out for everybody, is him willing us to a draw and being robbed of willing us to a win against Savannah.
Yep.
Seeing how much the captain's armband meant to him meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
He came from a real soccer culture, playing in Europe, unlike pretty much anybody else on the roster. And you could tell he really understood what it meant to have away fans from day one. He was one of the guys that was quick to come over to the away fans. He was quick to talk about it in interviews.
Remember his first away goal?
No. San Diego?
Albion.
Oh, yeah.
Second minute, like redirecting and Aiden Bowers redirect, flying like a salmon.
Yes.
Through the 6-yard box.
Him like a salmon out of defensively or offensively, just winning headers, especially defensively.
Yeah.
You like his aura post game. I don't know that he always liked the Chathahai Nugalos, but he also like made sure that we did it when we won. I don't know. He was just a special guy. I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if he leaves. I think the USL Championship is calling his name.
Yeah.
I think his game fits that, and he deserves to get motherfucking paid.
Yeah.
And also, he had one of the best first halves of anybody in a CFC uniform in a very long time this season.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna miss him a lot. And one thing that I'm really sad is we never sat down for an interview with him, which was a miss by us. Damien, CFC's chosen child, chosen kid, chosen young adult. I'm going to read the rest of my piece here, and I'll let you go switch it up a little bit. A career derailed by injuries. The career is not yet over, to be clear, but he absolutely lit up Nisa as a tiny child. And he gave us one of the highlight performances of CFC's career against Atlanta in the preseason, where all of Atlanta United Twitter was pining for young Damien Rodriguez. I hope he gets his injuries together and figures it out, and whatever can figure. And hopefully this isn't the end, because he's still young enough to go make it pro somewhere else. But yeah, he's Dalton's own, he's CFC's own, he's Chattanooga's own, and man, hopefully he has a long pro career, and this can be just a little blip. But what a firework essentially for like a season and a half there, where he was just like in the ascendancy, and we saw the like big pops, and we just unfortunately never got to see the prolonged thing. But I'll miss him, man. And it sucked that he was never old enough to come to the bar, basically.
Yeah,
because he was so young when we signed him.
Yeah. So 4 seasons, because he joined in 2021. 53 appearances, 4 goals, 4 assists.
He didn't have a single appearance this year.
Yeah, he has one. He gets credit for 1 in preseason. But yeah, did not.
So imagine how many appearances he would have had if he would have regularly played this year.
Oh, man, his
overall, the final number.
His 2022 and his 2023 were both, and like this year, 2024, we're all like severely impacted by injuries. And that's a real shame, and it's especially a shame because it's a local product.
Yeah,
and these things happen, and it's terrible. It sucks, but yeah, they do happen sometimes, and I hope whatever's next for him, that he is, he gets a chance to get a new environment and really break free of some of the injury issues, and like can really develop into the player that he's meant to be.
Amen, brother. And last but certainly not least, the second of the Bash brothers, Duvan Villafaramina.
Our Colombian friend, 1 season, 24 appearances, 3 clean sheets, and 2 goals.
The goals were fun.
Yeah, the equalizer against Philadelphia in the first half, away up there.
The smash and grab, the final goal, the smash and grab.
The moment is Orlando for me.
It's duh.
Like, it's obviously Orlando.
In a game we didn't deserve a single point out of that we managed to get 2.
It was just freaking brilliant.
And what a finish too, like twirling his body to get his foot on like the ball.
Yeah. That's
and
a
the
real
celebration peeling away.
That's a real special one for me.
Yeah.
Totally really struggled at times this season. But
post injury especially.
Yeah, but when he played well.
Wait, you said Tolly?
I said Tolly. I meant Duvan.
I was going to say, because Tolly did not struggle pre-injury, and I would argue he didn't struggle a ton post-injury, though he just never quite hit the same heights. But
Duvan had a couple of pretty high-profile mistakes. But when Duvan was on and he played well, he was unbelievable. In terms of defensively being able to read the game, his breaking lines passing was extremely good and a big influence on how we played.
He did a lot of little brothering of guys towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed.
Yeah. I'm going to miss him. Seems I'm he's one of those guys that had his option declined. So, assuming that this is the end for his time here, we'll miss him. We'll wish him well. We'll miss him. And,
a couple little things I remembered is him coming to the bar afterward, looking very cool, like very swagged out, big shoes, like whatever else, and chain, and then him, I think, pretending not to speak English.
There was
I think he didn't have great English, to be clear, but I think he was playing it up a little bit to not have to talk to all of us. But I found that endearing, or I found that perception of mine endearing,
especially early on. Like, what the hell is going on here?
He was, but he would give you a big handshake or a little dap up and hug with a big smile on his face.
Yeah,
man, I'll for sure miss, and I'll miss the player he could have been that we saw glimpses of, and we felt the impact of the second half of the season quite a bit. Matthew, that takes us through all of the goodbyes, but I'd like to read you some top moments from the season, a lot of which have to do with some players.
Okay.
From Kyle on Twitter, seeing Marcus eye the goal, then quick pass to Taylor, me adding in Toronto to score really warmed my heart. So good to see those two connect on the pitch again. I agree with that, Kyle.
Yeah.
At Kennesaw, again from Kyle, JP was chasing an attacker down the wing, overtook him, took the ball, and then Dikembe Mutombo'd, wagged his finger at him. That's a hell of a good high moment. And then he's also said we were down a goal and Jalen had just subbed on. He got a pass on the wing and I stood up and said to my wife, "Here it is!" And my boy cut in the box and launched it in the back of the net. That was a great goal. That was a satisfying moment. And what a great moment. Victor, John Burke's clean sheet against Cincinnati. Jesus' first game back scoring against Columbus.
That chip was magnificent.
The Alex McGrath header against Fort Lauderdale as well, as the Ethan Corrin goal, which were not on his bingo card, he says, which couldn't agree more. And then the Marcus return announcement from Victor. And then I have a few more. But the way 109 cheered for Minjay his first game, the Medi bicycle kick against the Revs.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. The look on Matt's face when we beat Carolina Core and for a fragment of time we're top of the East.
I don't remember that, but okay.
That's great, Vic. I love you. And also, hell yeah. And literally the entire Sunday match day in Toronto, which I co-signed.
What a day.
And also Bill co-signs. Bill also mentioned that the entire Toronto trip.
Is Toronto your favorite away trip this year?
Yes, without a doubt.
Better than Miami?
Far better. Are you trying to include the cruise as part of the?
Yeah.
It's hard to go back and forth on those, but the cruise I would count as being slightly separate from the away trip
because we separated it.
Yeah, well, because we went from there somewhere else. I mean, I could include my entire vacation to Romania after Toronto if I wanted to.
That's true.
But yeah. Bill said it was a season of almost. How the almost bicycle kick from Tolly, which had he connected, I do believe he would have set the net on fire. Yeah, man, Bill, that's a good one. Justin, Jean Jean-Antoine getting fan mobbed in Foxborough. The Burke first clean sheet. The bicycle TM. The Travella. The fan bus. Shout out to CFC. That fan bus is ruled. I took the one. 5 goals in Canada. Yep. Smash and grab at Stumptown Academy. So smash and grab at Stumptown. I guess he felt like the Crown Legacy away. I don't know. That was smash and grab. That was a John Burke masterclass.
It was also.
And then Justin brings up a very, very good one. The Academy kids shenanigans on penalties.
Yeah, that's a
top moment. It's a top moment. And then from Gabe, shout out Gabe. By the way, I listened to the final moments because the stream died. I listened to the first little bit of the pregame, which shout out of the Red Bulls game, and then I listened to the final penalties on radio call. So shout out Gabe. Those were great. If you didn't know, CFC has a radio broadcast that you can listen to if you are not around, and it rules. And Gabe, our announcer from last year, does that call. He said, played very well against some top flight competition. Loved the energy of so many moments. Matches against Huntsville and Atlanta United stand out. Inter Miami matches were classics. Yes, they definitely were. I'm super excited about the community support and the commitment to growing the club. Matthew, what did we miss? What do we want to go over?
I think we're good. I think we covered it all.
I agree. Listeners, watchers, we are on the YouTubes. Please like, comment, subscribe. It means a lot. Tell us your favorite moments in those comments from different players. We're going to miss a lot of these players. Hopefully a few of them that on that list will be back. But now we get into silly season. Now we get into the parts of the season where we get to go, holy moly, who is coming here? Who might come here?
Yep.
I know you're excited about that. Matthew, thank you for joining me. And listeners, viewers, we'll catch up with you soon. Peace.